We're all aware. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the City of Merritt Regular Council meeting, Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Inca, Kappa, and Silk people. Number 2, late items. We do have a late item, the transit item that we got. We would like to add that to the 5.1 presentation. Is that where we're going with that?
That is correct.
Okay, so we need to add that 5.2 to 5.1, that addition. So that was the item that you got late. So I need a motion of that. Councillor Etchart, Councillor Wogan, all those in favor? Opposed? It's there now. Thank you. Public input. Any public input?
We do have a proponent who had indicated that he was in the audience, that he wished to speak. This was Chris Langhow.
Sure.
Is he in the audience? And did you wish to speak?
Don't want to keep you, Chris. Just get you push that red button in front of you when you get up there.
Great.
Thank you, Chris.
Good evening, Sylvia. Your worship, council members, staff, and guests. Thanks for inviting me to speak to this item. I think you all probably have the letter from Kuhn Legal Counsel in your agenda package, maybe not. If not, I'll just in speaking to this this actual item, we hired.
Would this be 8.1?
Variance.
Okay, so
he's speaking to it.
8.1.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sure, Chris.
Yep, no worries. So our company 1227 Holdings Limited that owns the 56-acre parcel on Midday Valley Road, 1227 Midday Valley Road. We are in the midst of a subdivision there, and we're almost ready to, in fact, we've awarded the tender now for all the works that need to be happening there, roads and services and stripping and grading. It's quite a large contract. So typically what we do is with these types of developments, that when that comes along, our engineers do an estimate of the costs involved in completing those various components of the works. And the city takes those numbers and adds another 20% just for a safety margin. And we end up with 120% of whatever the actual cost is. So if it's $5 million, it's in the end, you have to bond or provide a letter of credit for, say, $6 million if the actual cost is estimated cost is $5 million. As costs go up, this becomes quite onerous on developers. And so what we're seeing is a trend right across Canada, started in the east, coming this way, including Calgary, Edmonton, I think it was Grand Prairie, in BC, Surrey's undertaken now to use what we call surety bonds in lieu of letters of credit. And as Rick pointed out, Director of Public Works pointed out to me, at our last meeting, Cloven has also undertaken this surety bond as well. So I'll just read a little bit from our legal counsel's, municipal legal counsel's advice on this, because I think it explains it better than I could. So it just says, unfortunately, the use of traditional letters of credit requires that developers post the full amount of the security with their financial institution, pay a substantial fee to the institution, then also pay the actual cost of infrastructure and services. Developers therefore end up fronting more than twice the cost of the construction and installation of services, with significant capital tied up with traditional lenders, sometimes for years. In our case, it's probably just short of a year. This both increases the cost of development and introduces delays and funding limitations. To address these problems, the use of alternative security in the form of surety bonds has been rapidly expanding in the Canadian development industry. Surety bonds in the form of subdivision bonds, servicing bonds, and project bonds have been accepted by the City of Surrey, the City of Edmonton, City of Calgary, Grand Prairie, as I mentioned, City of London, Pickering, and City of St. Thomas, and more recently, Kelowna in BC. Under the surety bond model, municipalities are able to ensure satisfactory completion of servicing and infrastructure requirements while promoting timely and efficient development. Most importantly, surety bonds provide the same level of protection to municipalities as traditional letters of credit. This is because the bonding agencies, backed by some of the largest insurance companies in Canada, are contractually bound to complete the works in accordance with the service requirements of the municipality. Cities also benefit from the additional level of protection afforded by the bonding process. The insurance companies backing the surety bonds require detailed and rigorous financial disclosure from the applicants. And so what it does, it transfers the risk from what used to be the bank to the surety company via the strength of the financial covenants provided by the individuals, owners of the company. So in my case, there's 4 partners. And so it's on the strength of our financial covenant that they would issue a surety bond without asking for a cash equivalent in a bank account like that a bank does for a letter of credit, right? So I'll just read the last paragraph. Our clients therefore request the existing terms of Schedule H performance agreement relating to the letter of credit be amended to allow for the posting of a surety bond in lieu of the letter of credit. And this would be by way of a previously submitted development variance permit app that we've submitted to staff. So I think that explains it about as clearly as I can. I'm certainly willing to answer any questions that council might have.
Do we do questions here? Do we wait till it comes up?
Until it comes up
Okay.
as the variance.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. I'll get you to push
Yep.
that button on the way out. And you're not gone yet, so. Nice try, though. Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? Is that it? Is that all we had? Okay. So before we move on, I would just like to acknowledge the fact that our brand new counselor is sitting out in the stands. Counselor Yvette Baxter, congratulations on your win and how well you did. So we're looking forward to you. So we will give you the obligatory golf clap. Thank you. And I do believe we have your jump into the party on May the 7th. I believe it is May the 7th. So we're looking forward to that. So job well done. Thank you. Looking forward to working with you. Adoption of minutes, 4.1 regular council meeting, March 26, 2024. Recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on March 26, 2024 be adopted. Councilor Petrosi, Councilor Etchart, any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Here comes the bottleneck. 4.2, regular council meeting minutes, April 9th, 2024. Recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on April 9th, 2024 be adopted. Councilor Egan, Councilor Olgan, any errors or omissions? Oh, Councilor Charney. Push your
Okay, the amendment, I think it's supposed to read November, December, January, February. Yes,
Oh, that's,
not October. Amendment on 8.2,
that is the,
the contract for the concession down to $600 a month. November, December, January, February. It would, no, not October. Yeah, 4 months. Yeah, so scratch out October, add January, February.
thank you. Any other errors, omissions? Councilor Egan? Button. We're working now.
Sorry,
No problem.
point number 13, it says Counselor Egan requested council considered a memorial to Gene Weber. It's supposed to be Gene Swedberg, which I believe you got right later on, so I wish it would have been corrected. Anyways, it's Gene, Jean. Swedberg.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
So we'll make those 2 corrections on the agenda or on the minutes. And
Thank-
then if you wished, we can do this as amended.
Sure.
These minutes.
I will need to move it as the agenda minutes. Oh, I guess we could use the same people we had, correct? First and the mover and the seconder. Yeah, they agree to the amendments. Yes, thank you. All those in favor as amended? And then all in favor of those as it is now. Carried. So good. General matters, delegations and recognitions. 5.1 BC Transit. Elise Wren and Jen Getz will be presenting for BC Transit. I believe they're coming through on Zoom, I do believe. So take it away. And this is where we have the added item that you had as well. So.
Hello, would you like to see video as well, or
Sure.
just unmute ourselves?
We're happy to see anything you should send to us.
Okay. All right, so Jen, if you don't mind just taking it to the first slide. There we go, wonderful. So thank you so much for having us here today. It's always a pleasure to join you from BC Transit. I usually like to come in person. Didn't work out this time. I am visiting you in Merritt in the middle of May, so I'm looking forward to coming then. I'm also going to be at Silga. If any of you are at Silga next week, I'd come by and see our table that BC Transit will have, and looking forward to chatting with you there. Jen, next slide, please. So my name is Elise Wren. I'm the manager of government relations for your region. I've taken over for Danica White, who you may have met previously for her mat leave. So I'll be with you until January of 2025. I'm responsible for the Thompson-Kootenay region. I'm the main point of contact for our local government partners. So that means for Kevin, I'm his main point of contact to transit. And I act as a conduit. So I have a team of subject matter experts surrounding me at BC Transit on everything from operations to scheduling to marketing to finance. And it's my job to connect you with them to get everything that you need from BC Transit. I also monitor and communicate transit system performance. And then I also look for reputational risks for BC Transit, its leadership, and then also risks for yourself and your transit system as well. Next slide, Jen. And I'm happy to introduce to you Jen Getz. Jen Getz is a transit planner here with BC Transit, and the regional transit planning team strives to provide customer-focused, efficient, reliable transit service to your community. So she's responsible for the Thompson-Kootenay region, as well as Vernon and Shuswap. She's responsible for planning, designing, analyzing, monitoring, evaluating, and modifying the service strategies that support the efficient operation of Merritt Transit. And before Jen moves into telling you a little bit more about the engagement summary that she's brought today, I wanted to share the goal of presenting engagement results to Council today. BC Transit's looking to get confirmation that Council is comfortable with the service scenarios and the options that have arisen from the engagement that we've done, and that Council would like to see these initiatives put forward formally as a recommendation for the future of transit in Merritt. As you're listening, should there be any initiatives that Council does not wish to consider, now's the time to discuss so that BC Transit can exclude it from our plans moving forward. Ideally, though, the draft future service plan that emerges from our engagement results is a reflection of the City of Merritt's strategic priorities and goals, and incorporates public feedback that Council feels comfortable implementing in future years. So please keep this in mind as Jen walks you through her findings. I'll pass it over to Jen now.
Great, thanks, Elise. Nice to see everyone. Elise gave a little bit of the background here about why we're here today, but I'll just quickly go through this slide as well. So about a year ago, our previous government relations manager, Danica White, did present a roadmap for the Merritt Transit Future Service Plan. Council gave approval at that time for BC Transit to work with city staff to finalize the terms of reference and to develop the plan. So now that the engagement summary report for the Transit Future Service Plan is complete, Merritt staff have advised that you be made aware of the report. And yes, please feel free to ask any questions at the end. It'll be pretty short and sweet here. So I believe that you did receive, that council received the finalized report as an attachment, so you can go with that if you haven't already. Gives much more detail than I'm able to provide in this presentation, but just a high-level overview of the engagement events. We started off with some operator engagements, so I rode the buses with operators, chatted with them one-on-one, both on the bus as well as in the Merritt Transit office. And then I also had a number of them fill out a survey, an operator survey. And then we also did a public survey. And we lastly did we did about 4 pop-up kiosk style booths. So of those who participated, we had Merritt residents, employees, and students, and they provided feedback on desired services, priorities, and travel behaviors, specific destinations within Merritt. And we had about 140 participants in total. So the report itself goes over kind of the engagement process, the results, and the next steps. And in the report, it does include kind of key takeaways, key themes from each of the engagement activities. But I will, instead of going through kind of each of those individual, I'll give you kind of a broad overview of the key themes that we found throughout the engagement. So there were 4 that stood out that kept coming up the most, and they were as follows. So we had night service and Sunday service to Lower Nicola, higher frequency on all routes. So people wanted to see the bus arriving at stops more often. And then a number of people said they wanted the stops to closer together and with more amenities, like shelters or benches, garbage cans, that sort of thing. And also another very popular one was service connecting the Coldwater Avenue West area to the Exchange downtown. And I'll show you where that is on the map here. So this is a map of the existing transit service in Merritt. And this area highlighted in yellow is where we were referring to as the Coldwater Avenue West area. And as you can see, that area currently is not served by transit. So a number of people commented that they would like to have service connecting this area to the downtown Exchange, which is where this letter A is right here. So that is it, the very quick presentation, but I wanted to leave some time here in case anyone had questions. And Elise and I will be happy to answer.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Councilor Petrosi.
Yes, I would like to know, I think we had discussed about the Coldwater Band, Coldwater Road, Cooks Ferry. Have you had any engagement with the Coldwater Band on this?
Yes, thank you. So the existing, there are a couple of existing service agreements at the moment with some of the bands. I believe it's Lower Nicola and Cooks Ferry. So we have spoken to or reached out to both of those bands, and we're successful in getting a lot of feedback about the Lower Nicola desired more service, and then also the Antco area that came up a little bit. And we have reached out and spoken to representatives, a couple of representatives of that community as well. In terms of the Coldwater band, That one is, I don't believe there is a service agreement in place at the moment, so we weren't quite able to specifically ask questions in the survey and in the engagement as a whole about service to that area, but we did receive some comments that came up through the survey for Coldwater, and all of that is included, all of the comments, anonymous comments, and key takeaways. I believe that did come up in some of the sections as well. That's all included in the report. So happy to pull out specifically where in the report speaks to Coldwater and share that with Kevin and our local government partner with Merritt if you'd like. But yes, it did come up a little bit. We weren't able to specifically ask about Coldwater service. If that answers your question.
Thank you, Jen. Jen, just a question. When I was talking to Danica last year, some of the areas that were affected by the flood still had not had bus service. Have we returned bus service to all zones 3 and 4 that had it before the flood? Are we back on track on that? Or are we still looking to get that back? I'm just not sure.
Yeah, totally. This is a good question, Mayor Getz. Yeah, so we have not returned service back to the pre-flood service. So that would be something that we would still hope to do. I believe it was the Middlesbrough Bridge that was impacted, and that is why. So I'm not. I haven't heard any updates on the bridge reconstruction. But
Jen, it'll be completed this year, later in the year. But when we had discussed with Danica, we talked about areas such as down end by Canford and then going over to government where you don't have to cross that bridge at this point in time. And I was just wondering if at some point we could have that looked at, because it leaves quite a bit of the community not able to access public transit. If we were able to even get those areas back into the system. I do get some concerns from people wanting to know when that's going to happen. So I just thought I would drop that for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Richard.
Well, thanks for the information. I was at this presentation when you were here. I was wondering, is there much service that would end up going to the other extended neighborhoods like Ban or the new expansion along Pope? I just noticed that along Douglas and Houston, there are a number of people that live in that area, but there's also other neighborhoods through the Dunvale area that are extended kind of at the ends. And I just wonder, that must be a little bit of a walk coming down from say McLean and Sage Place that are kind of further, a few blocks down. Like I see kind of, and not as much into the neighborhoods of the bench, but I don't know what impact, what feedback was given from that survey that way.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, respectfully through the chair. So yes, there was some feedback that was given, especially about service requests along Armstrong Street that kept coming up. We have looked a little bit into that. Unfortunately, at this time, the turnaround points, there's not a lot of options, so something still to explore. And through the Transit Future Service Plan, any kind of desired service areas would be kind of highlighted as potential future options, even if the road structure isn't there at the moment. But it could, we would indicate that should the road structure be more connected in future, then such service would be an option. So that was kind of one example along Armstrong. But yeah, the bench also was a very popular one that came up. It didn't make it to one of my 4 key takeaways in tonight's presentation. But that was another area. And I'm trying to think if there, and then Antco 21 as well. So in the south area there, that was another one that did come up.
Great,
and that we would be looking into.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Any other questions for the team? Oh, Seal, I can't see your mic, so.
I was just thinking, yeah, I imagine that they would challenge with the that neighborhood, Armstrong, Philip Van, Sage, like, because most of those places have no connection. So if we're talking about the demand is to put in more stops on the routes and put in more infrastructure, and then if we had to add a drive that went around to get into that area, I imagine the cost would go up substantially.
Thank you. Any other questions? So before us, we have the late item, which was to be brought in for information and discussion purposes. Now, we all kind of received this kind of late in the day and it's pretty thick, so. Yeah, we got this today. Yeah, this was today. So I would like to accept it as information, but I intend to read mine, and I may have some questions later, which I'm sure we would be able to get a hold of you, Elise or Jen, to ask some questions on this, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. Both of our email addresses are just our first letter of our first name and then our last name, bctransit.com, or you can also reach out to our partner, our local government partner with Merritt, your staff member, Kevin, and he can also pass on the questions to us that way as well.
So is there any question on the document that we got for information purposes that anybody wants to ask now, or peruse it, and then we can ask questions if we need to? Councillor Egan.
Not much difference between the one that was already in the package, between what we received later today.
I think it goes into a little bit more depth than just the bullet points. So I don't think there's anything outstanding, as I can recall talking with Danica, but I think we should just ingest it, and then if we have any questions, we can get a hold of Transit. They're very easy to get a hold of, so. I need a motion that we accept that. Councillor Petrosi, Councillor Etchart, any other questions? Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. You can go back to your night now.
Thank you so much. Elise says her mic is off, but wants me to thank everyone on behalf as well. So thanks on behalf of us both. Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Moving on, 5.2 Community Living BC. Community Living BC will be presenting on inclusive housing presentation. I don't know who's doing that, so I have nothing here, so. CO?
Oh, hi there. My name is Brita Hall and I'm the Provincial Community Engagement Lead at Community Living BC. And we also have Tony and Tammy joining us, and we have pre-recorded our presentation. And so I will just work on sharing my screen with you now, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end.
Thank you.
Just make sure you can hear it.
Hello. I would like to start off by gathered on today as the traditional unceded territory of the many land that we nations, including the Shawapnik territory and the traditional territories of the Métis people. My name is Tammy Peterson, and I am a self-advocate leader and chair from the Community Living BC Thompson Caribou Community Council. Thank you for having us here today to represent to you on inclusive housing, a topic that I am very much passionate about.
Hello, my name is Tony Cuyeta. I'm a member of the Community BC Thompson Caribou Community Council. I'm a self-advocate leader. I'm excited to be presenting to you on the topic of inclusive housing.
Hello, my name is Brita Hall and I'm the Provincial Community Engagement Lead. And I'm excited to be here with Tony and Tammy and all of you today to discuss inclusive housing, a topic that is very important. A few notes before we start. Community Living BC, or CLBC for short, is the provincial crown corporation that funds supports and services to adults with developmental disabilities, as well as individuals who have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and have significant difficulty doing things on their own. CLBC is involved with over 28,000 adults in British Columbia. Over 10,000 still live with their aging parents as there is nowhere for them to go. CLBC estimates of the people they serve, 760 are homeless or close to being without a home. We need to request a certain number of subsidized housing units and rent subsidies to be dedicated to people with diverse abilities.
You might have heard that people with diverse abilities live in institutions, but that is now our history, and we have come a long way.
Today, we want to focus on inclusive housing. Over 5,000 people with diversity abilities across the province are looking for homes of their own. Inclusive housing means having access to the same choice about where you live as everyone else. It is the key to independence, stability, and belonging. This is why it is important to us to bring awareness about inclusive housing. We want to make an impact in the housing community, which is why we are here today. When my dad passed away, I stayed with my mom. I cared for my mom. My mom struggled with dementia. She became angry. My mom's health declined. My brother Louis stepped in. I stayed at a men's shelter. I moved to a duplex shared with family. I moved to my own trailer. I moved into a condo. I had a big debt. Good friends of mine helped me pay the mortgage. Sold my condo, couldn't afford payments. Paid off my debt. Found a place of my own for 10 years. Moved. Found my home now is subsidizing housing. Home is now good location, affordable, and diversity. People live there that are helpful and friendly. I am passionate about inclusive housing. It is very important for a quality of life.
When I lived on the coast, I lived on my own, working 3 jobs to pay my bills. I couldn't afford to live there anymore because it was getting too expensive. I moved back to Kamloops where I lived with my dad, then I moved in with my mom. 3 years ago, my mom told me it was time for me to move out and live independently. I found support to help me find my home now at Glenfair. It is quiet, inclusive, and there are other people there with diverse abilities living there. Everyone is kind, and I feel at home. My rent is subsidized, which is more affordable for me. My apartment is large, but it's cold in the winter and hot in the summer. The doors aren't sealed properly because of wear and tear over the years, so the bugs are able to get in and out. They are planning to rebuild the building, but not for another 9 to 10 years. I think it is important for people with disabilities to live in a home where they can access everything, laundry, countertops, etc., where they feel welcome and have friendly neighbors and feel safe. This is why we are here today to advocate for more inclusive housing.
Inclusive housing is when someone has a choice over their living space. It is when housing is physical, accessibility, and close to a community. It is when people with diversity abilities live next door to everyone else.
Inclusive housing is where there is diversity. Neighbors have different interests and backgrounds. Inclusive housing provides stability and allows for support services. They do not all live together in one building as we are avoiding congregation.
There are so many benefits to inclusive housing. Inclusive housing benefits the entire community. Inclusive housing plans help developers gain community support. When housing and amenities are accessible and inclusive to people with disabilities, they are more welcoming to everyone. Inclusive housing promotes safety and allows individuals to experience life in a neighborhood. People stay in their homes longer and form supportive relationships with neighbors. It helps build true community bonds. It provides ways for people of many walks of life to connect and interact.
Inclusive housing for people with diverse abilities is a priority. No one has all the expertise and the capacity to make inclusive housing happen alone. We need to work together with people and organizations that have the experience in community living, housing, financing, and planning. Please remember to include people with diverse abilities specifically. We are often left out of housing plans because people think we are looked after somewhere else.
Thank you for having us here today. We hope you learned that inclusive housing means that people live in their homes where they feel they are a part of their community. Inclusive housing should provide people with a sense of home and belonging with their community and promote quality of life. If you are planning a new housing project or giving input to the community housing plan, please contact with us. We are asking for new builders to include 1 or 2 units for those eligible for Community Living BC. We want to help spread the word that people with diversity ability needs to be included in housing plan.
Thank you, and please contact our housing lead, Michelle Tong, to discuss how you can help build a more inclusive community. Thank you for having us here today.
Please contact CLBC's Housing Lead team at clbc.housing.leads@gov.bc.ca to discuss how CLBC can work with your city to create more inclusive housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Britt, are you still with us?
Yeah, hi. Yes, I am. And I just, hopefully Tony and Tammy can unmute because I know they were excited to possibly respond to some questions if you had any.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Tony and Tammy and Britta. Question that I have, Britta, with the new housing legislation that's just come out lately from the ministry, does this affect what you're looking at, considering we're talking more densification rather than building just a single unit? We can go to a 4-unit or a 6-unit. Does that affect this BACLC at all, or how does that, has any of this changed anything for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And unfortunately, our housing lead who's involved with housing wasn't able to make it tonight. So that's her area expertise. So I'll definitely bring that forward. I'm not sure how it might affect Community Living BC and housing plans. But yeah, hopefully we're really wanting to promote inclusive housing and see if you guys had any ideas of other avenues in your area that Tony and Tammy could present to request builders to reserve units specifically for those eligible for CLBC.
Council, any questions? CL.
Hi, Tony and Tammy. I know that the Thompson Nicola Regional District is doing a housing needs assessment. And Tammy, for sure, you said you were in Kamloops, correct? Tammy, you still on with us?
She might be on mute.
No, she's gonna unmute it. Well, I'm just saying, I'm just thinking that maybe we would like to involve you as some of you as stakeholders for that housing needs assessment. So I will perhaps get some contact information for you from Britta later, and we'll put you in touch with our consultant who's doing that work.
That'd be amazing. Thank you so much. They'd be, yeah, I'm sure thrilled with that opportunity.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Ogan.
Thank you. So I don't have a question, so I just want to thank you for the reminder. In my current position as a business advisor for people with disabilities providing services across British Columbia, I can attest the big need of housing for people with diverse abilities, not only in our community, but across the province. So that's a big issue. And specifically when we talk about undiagnosed people. So you mentioned those stats for diagnosed people, but when we talk about the undiagnosed and they cannot have access to get diagnosis, so it's very difficult and it's a big issue. So thank you so much for that reminder.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Councillor Charney.
I'd like to thank Tony and Tammy for that presentation. It was excellent. This question is for Britta. When you have a CLBC housing unit, do you have supports in place or are they completely independent living?
If we have a unit specifically for those eligible for CLBC, we provide the supports. However, I mean, having said that, supports are based on the level of need, so it really depends on what their level of need is, how much support that they receive. But there are some people eligible for CLBC who live in the community completely independent without receiving outreach supports. So it really depends on the level of need. But if CLBC is partnering with like our service providers are partnering on a specific unit, then supports are put in place.
Thank you.
So Britta, just a question, when you do this housing, this inclusive housing, and you start to put people in, do you also work with the community to see if you could place them with employers that are also looking for the same situation where they can help people that with disabilities? Does that come with this? Or is that provided at all? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we do have employment supports to help people eligible for CLBC obtain employment, and inclusive employment is another topic that we're very passionate about as well. But really, CLBC services are voluntary. So depending on if that person is wanting to work and wanting that support, then that's something that we definitely support with.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Etchart?
I was just wondering if there's members in the community who qualify for the CLBC, if sometimes they are placed even in maybe just a home, just a regular home that where they can receive supports, or if it would only be for specific housing, like the Mayfair was mentioned, I think she mentioned in Kamloops. And I know that's a larger facility in Kamloops, but I was just wondering because in the smaller communities like Merritt, sometimes people will find suites or apartments that are lower cost, but I was just wondering how your programs work that way.
Yeah. And so we also do have home share supports. So that's where CLBC pays somebody to provide support for somebody eligible for CLBC to live in their home. And also I know the speaker is not working for Tony and Tammy, but they wanted to just add that Tony is employed and his employment helps pay for his rent. So that is a bonus too. And I'm from Vancouver Island, so I don't know specifically about Merritt area, but that would be a great question for me to follow up with our housing lead.
Thank you.
Britta, just a quick question on when someone gets placed with BL with the PLC, whatever it is there a time limit on how long they can stay, or is it they can move on at their own choice, or is this like a forever home? I'm just not sure on how the placements go.
Yeah, so it really depends. So we have a few different models. So one of them being outreach support. So that's where the person eligible for CLBC lives on their own independently, and it could be renting a home, renting a basement suite, renting an apartment, and CLBC can provide outreach support. So that's a support worker working with them to on the daily living skills to make sure they're successful where they're living. Another model we have is home share support. So as I was mentioning, there was CLBC would provide the support to somebody who's willing to share their home with them and provide them with that level of support they need to live successfully in their home, that shared space. And then we also do have staff residential resources where it's 24/7 staffed home model. Those are for those with a higher level of need, more complex. But they're the facilitator that's with Tony and Tammy's messaging me to say there is no group homes in Merritt. So yeah, like I said, I'm not from the area, so I don't know those stats specifically, but I guess there is no group homes in staff resources in Merritt area.
Thank you very much. I guess this question would be for staff at this point. If there was a contractor willing to do some CLBC involvement, is there a break that they would get from the provincial government to help them with, let's say, 2 units or 3 units or 4 units? Do they see some sort of a benefit to make that happen, or is this just totally on them to do this?
So I think ultimately, this is part of what we're talking about with our housing program, is identifying where those housing needs lie. And if we have the ability to support a developer to develop accessible and affordable residences, then we can subsidize or invest in that with an expectation of return based on the fact that they would maybe provide 2 or 3 home or residences or units that would be able to be accessed by an organization like CLBC. I'm not sure what BC Housing relationship is, but there's certainly the option for us. Same thing with, seniors, having accessible residences for seniors, small homes and that sort of stuff. So that's why we're really looking at, how best to serve the community with regards to affordable housing.
Thank you. Councillor Egan.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for a very well organized presentation. Question for Britta. How old is your organization?
CLBC started in 2005.
And where are you out of? Where do you?
I live on Vancouver Island in Nanaimo.
Okay, so we're talking about a couple of people in Kamloops that were with you today. Is that not true?
That's right, Tony and Tammy. So my
Okay.
position, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
I think they got their audio working.
Oh, okay. So I'm just wondering, how many community living units do you have in Kamloops? And how many developers are you working with there?
Well, we just, this inclusive housing project that we have started was 4 years ago? And then COVID hit, so we had 2 years of not doing it. So we're finally just getting it off the ground, and like Mara said, well, I'm living in Glenfair. They're not thinking of rebuilding until for another 9-10 years. But whatever new buildings that are possibly going up soon, we would like to at least have 3 or 4 units in something like that. And is there anything you want to say, John?
Like Tammy said, is that it's like before all COVID, we're in the process of 4 years, we're planning situations, we're planning everything, COVID came. We'd like to get, like Tammy said, 4 or 5 units. We can, and we like to connect with the builders and planners and to actually sit down with them and talk to them to say, okay, we've got a couple of units we want you guys to build for, and we've got people that will fit into it, are able to live in it. We want to know you build from the ground up until you actually completely the building is all finished. So we want some feedback. We want to be connected with the builders, the planners, all these people who we can talk to, and construction people, whoever has contracts, whatever, to really sit down with them and talk to them about having these units done before they actually get the building done.
Thank you. And Britta, in the rest of the province, how well received is this with the developers?
Yeah, unfortunately, like I'm not involved with our housing plans. I'm not able to answer that. Our housing lead is meant to be here today, but she's unable to. So again, I can bring that forward to her who works on the housing team.
Thank you.
CEO.
And Britta, I don't know if you probably don't have these stats, but if we could also find out how many people are on a wait list for supported housing, either through rent subsidy through CLBC or through who require supportive assistance to stay in their community, right? Like obviously, much like with seniors, we want to be able to house people in their home communities. So how many people are we looking to house in Merritt or potentially bring back to Merritt because they're in other places?
Yeah, no, great question. I'll add that to my list. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So I just want to say thank you, Britta, Tony, and Tammy for your presentation. I really appreciate it. So have a great rest of the night. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Have a good night.
5.3, Thompson Nicola Trail Society. Lloyd Charney will be presenting for the Thompson Nicola Regional Trail Society. Mr. Charney. Come up and push that button. You're up.
Thank you very much, Mayor Getz and council and staff for having me. And I just want to talk briefly on our society has been working on a trail from the Black Bridge to Bill Willer road for last year or so, and I just want to let you know that something is happening there, and also maybe the public would like to know that. So I'm here for two reasons. Under section 57, which our society received the okay to develop this particular trail, and that's through the forestry. So just to give you a little background, when the railway pulled out, the land went back to BC, the BC government, which became Crown, and any land that was on the native reserves became their land. So if the land is on native reserve, that's their property. And if it's on anything else, it's the Crown land. So that's where we come in. Our society started off not as building trails or anything like that. It was basically to promote trails. And the idea was to have a trail from Merritt to Spence's Bridge. And that that was about 5 years ago. And since then, we've had some problems with the climate and the politics and everything else that you can get in. So right now we've got 1.8 kilometers from the Black Bridge to Bill Willer Road to see what we can do with. And I would like to basically ask the city today to consider a donation of a type of in-kind, I guess you might say. And if you could help certain things that we do need on developing this trail. So I think we do have some pictures. Oh, that's what it is. So there is a particular, this is looking back towards Merritt, as you can see. The next one is that we've already started building the roof for we're going to have two little information areas where you could, and these are the roofs for the kiosks. And these are the forms that we've cut for 3 feet down, and then the sonotubes will be filled with cement to make sure that the wind around here doesn't blow them over. And the next one is, I actually have this one. This is a sign, which one of the agreements was that when you do this trail, you have to have stop signs for when the trail crosses a road, and in particular going into somebody's property. So we've this is actually recycled. It's not part of the city, by the way. I stole it from somebody else. If you notice, you don't have any signs, you know where. So we cut them up and we made 8 of these, and then we went down to Second Avenue for Greg Johnson, and he put the stop, and then we made up a name. No, that's not true. This is does anybody know what this language is from? This is Métis. It means to stop. And this one down here is from Cook's Ferry. And I'm not too sure what language it is. I'm sorry about that, but that's the way she goes. Anyway, along the trail itself, there'll be a different things like this, acknowledging the 5 nations that are in bands that are in this area, and also the Métis, who were kind of prominent in this area and built Merritt to a certain extent in the 1960s, for sure. So we're going to acknowledge on these 2 kiosks. One will have the Métis on one side, and the elders. The other will be the natives that we have now, the 5 bands. The other one will be Cook's or Kootley siding, which is the area where it'll stop, and that's called Kootley siding. It's very in the past, in the history, it goes back to 1876, and that's when Alejandro Garcia came up from Mexico And we also have Alexander Kootley himself developing that area as soon as the reserves land was set up and the perimeter was set. The settlers kind of moved into that area. So that'll be on one side and Kootley siding will be on the other. Yeah. Is there anything else on that one? So I would just like to say that the community, because we have no money, the community has been most gracious. They've really been outstanding. And they've done a lot of things like Home Hardware in particular. I shouldn't mention names, but Home Hardware has supplied all the lumber and the sonotubes that you saw there and things like that. I've got Jackson's Welding, Alpha Welding has been involved in it, 2nd Street. YRB is going to brush cut the area and possibly if they can get a grader in there. And I'll have to talk to probably Rick about it, but if we can get a smaller grader in there, that would be even better. And Khalil Arnica is going to help with the area. We've got a backhoe, Jerry McKenzie's going to do that. We've been working with Cameron at the museum for the write-ups so that I don't get carried away and add a few things that are not supposed to be there. Arts Council will be involved in taking some photographs. And I'd like to say thank you to the neighbors along that way because Section 657 has to be approved by the neighbors. So if their land touches that crown land, they have to give the okay. They all have. One in particular is a little different, but anyway, everybody's agreed that it's a go. And Dr. Ross was here just now and said good luck to us, but it will stop at Bill Willer Road. It's not going to go any further. Just out of we don't have a picture of it. This particular picture there is Dr. Holmes. There was a hotel there before the house was built in 1913, I think the house was built. The hotel burned down in 1911. The next picture that you will see is that building is actually a barn right now, but it is a house that was built in 1876 by Kootley. And you can still see the doves in it. So what they did was when Dr. Ross came, I believe it was him, he wanted a different house. So they skidded it off and put it down into the back of the pasture. So that's the deal on that. And so what we need some help from, if you do have some kicking around, would be some cement, if that ever came up, some bolts, things like that, signs, posts that we need. And possibly if you have a backhoe, I see a girl running around on a backhoe today, that would be really helpful. But I know the insurance wouldn't allow it to go out of town probably, right? So it's always a catch. But now, just at the end, I would like to say that congratulations to Yvette Baxter. And it's a good deal. And the fire chief's here, but I'm going to tell the fire chief and myself go way back to school time. But I have to hit him tonight because I'm sitting in the back minding my own business and he congratulated that. And he says, it's nice to see somebody that's young on the council. Anyway, I'm sure that'll get you next year fire truck. Anyway, thank you very much for having me. I hope you consider helping out if you can, because the community is really supportive of this. So if the city could help us out in any way, that'd be good. And you can let me know who I can maybe be in touch with. I know the mayor has been very positive, and we've talked a little bit about where we could possibly get some help. So.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. I know this has been a passion of yours for quite a while, and I'm really glad to see it finally coming. I love the fact that you have Dr. Holmes's house here, and probably that's where we could go to get something to eat at the end of the trail. So it almost looks like a restaurant. So great deal.
Yeah.
When do you suspect that the trail will actually start to be usable for people? Do you have like a timeline at all?
Well, the month of May is when we're gonna try to get the backhoe down there and dig our trench and put the sonotubes in and pour the cement, get the kiosks up. And the trail is a problem to a certain extent because it will not have a permanent hard surface on it until either we get a nice grant from the grant writer, I hope from the city, or come up with something that's really going to be solid. So, but I mean, you can walk on it now. It's just rough. I mean, it's going through pasture and it's rough.
Are you opposed to people making cash donations for this? Are you equipped
No,
to,
that'd be really helpful.
you're equipped to handle a cash donation? If
Yeah,
somebody is,
yeah.
okay, just saying, because some places are. Yeah, yeah. So the other thing I'm wondering is, have you talked to Peter's brothers at all about, a lot of times they try to get rid of their fines.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be something you might want to be looking at, and
Yeah.
Mr. Green is probably thinking maybe I shouldn't say that because we do use those on occasion, but it might be something you may want to ask them. Councillor Egan, no, Councillor Petrosi.
Lloyd, thanks for the presentation. My wife and I, we've walked that stretch many times. We really enjoy it. So
Okay.
thank you very much. What's happening with the home right beside the Black Bridge, that property?
Don't know.
Who owns that?
Don't know. And
Okay,
you know, that's one thing we tried to work on finding out the owner. They never got back to us. So I work with Tim Bennett from the forestry quite a bit, and he says, I don't know. An interesting thing about that is that right there, that used to be called Singh's Corner. And he was a Chinese fellow that had an apple orchard there. And the whole area was all apples, and he supplied a lot of the Okanagan and all that area with apples. So I don't know, it's kind of a deviating from what your
no,
question was.
that's like that information. Where are the kiosks going to be
Okay.
placed?
So the kiosks will be where Robert Hack is in his property right there on the corner. One will be there and one will be down by Dr. Holmes' area, not in front of it, but kind of in that area. The reason for moving it down is just for vandalism.
Right.
So I walk by the Black Bridge every once in a while, and I'm not very, I guess, very polite to people. But anyway, there's guys sleeping under the bridge, right? So I'm pounding away and say, "You guys up yet?" And there's people all over the place, So I think that would be vandalized fairly quickly.
Right.
I don't know about our signs, but eventually they'll point to Kootley Siding, if that's the trail, if we can name that. It goes down 1.8. Speaking of apples, there's an apple tree, and I won't tell you where because maybe somebody will want to take some snippings from it or whatever. But there's an apple tree in that Kootley Siding area that's 150 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite something. And it was, and it's still, do we have a picture of it? No, I must have censored it. But anyway, it's there. And of course, in the 1880s, that's when it was planted. It was there for a purpose, and that was to make cider because the guys didn't have too much beer. So cider was a big thing. And apparently it's not only there, but it goes up along wherever they stopped, like up near Quesnel or whatever, because of the gold rush and all that. And apples were premium then, just a side.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Councillor Egan.
Quick question, and thank you very much for your presentation. I love the pictures, they're awesome. And I think it'll be very, very well used. And I also think Dr. Holmes will love it if he's the endpoint because he just loves talking to everybody.
Oh, God.
But the one, just little quick question is that Kootley Siding, was that actually the business?
No, it was actually it's still on the postal code. It's Kootley, really. If you look at the area there, it's supposed to be called Kootley. But Kootley Siding is still on the postal, I believe that according to Dr. Holmes. So what happened was in the 1900s, or whenever the railway, I think it was 1905, when the railway came in there, they moved off into that area as a siding where they took the tracks off to there. And if the train was coming, they would push it over there.
Okay.
And later they piled the cattle into the cattle cars. And that was the main distribution area. There's,
That's why the auction. house there.
yeah, there was a hotel there, as we know, there was a store there. And the store is kind of interesting. I know over my time, but L. McKay Smith, who has property, well, he's a neighbor to the area there. L. McKay Smith's great grandfather ran the store with his name on it and somebody else's name from Vancouver. It was a kind of a branch off, expanding, whatever. And it's called, I don't know if he was kidding me, but it's called Pacific Pride. And I did look it up, in which they sold coats and things like that. And apparently the company's still in operation in Vancouver on Hastings. And if you look it up, you're supposed to see Nelson Smith's name up there. So that's his great grandfather that was involved in that. There's a lot of history there, actually. The area is,
I think TNV should hire you as a tour guide.
yeah, I know. I wouldn't mind doing that, but I get a little sidetracked. I mean, you never know where we're in.
Lloyd gets on that trail and sits at the kiosk. He may never leave it.
Yeah, that's right.
CAO.
So Mr. Attorney, I just want to confirm, so one of the things you'd be looking for is some support with grant writing.
Right,
And identification of grants from the city.
right.
So that's pretty easy for us to do, is identify grants that might be applicable
Okay,
and to have our grant writers support that. So maybe we'll talk to our grant writers here this week. So maybe we'll touch base with her about identifying some grants that might support some of this development as
okay.
well.
So that money, if we got a grant, that money would go to the surfacing of it. of
Yeah,
the- of the path.
so we'll touch base with you about,
Yeah, we're talking a lot of money then.
yeah, well, and it'll be different. It'll depend, like whatever grants are available.
Mhm.
Like active transportation, I'm not sure if they're doing an intake right now, but that would be the ideal one, would be the active transportation funding, because then you could surface it. But otherwise, we'll look for other grants that may be appropriate
Okay,
for,
perfect.
for the trail. So we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you very much. It's great.
Councilor Rogan.
Thank you. So I was just wondering about the selection of the First Nation language for the stop signs.
Right.
So is there a rationale behind choosing?
Not really.
No?
No. I'll be truthful. I mean, I have to. So anyway, I went to second, so Cook's Ferry this is their language apparently. But what happened was that I asked Greg at the other end to put down, make sure we have our 5 bands there. And so I looked at it and I said, well, that's not the proper word. I don't know what it is, but it's not the proper word. And he said, well, I got it from Cook's Ferry stop sign. And I said, oh my gosh. So if anybody knows a little history around here, that's not, but anyway,
Well, if
there
you-
will be opportunities for others.
If you're putting up 8 of them, that's, you can spread the language around, I'm quite
Yeah,
sure.
and there's going to be lots of
Yeah.
that along the way, so that's no problem, but I thought it was kind of funny.
So
By the way, further to it, the only time that the 5 bands will be united, that's what I'm told anyway, the only time, and maybe it was Dr. Holmes, I don't know, he said, is Chief Nicola, and then that's not the way you say it, but Chief Nicola, way back in the late 1700s, 1800s, he went on a war path with the Lytton and Spence's Bridge natives down there, almost wiped them out, apparently. And then he came back and about just before he died, made peace with them. So it's kind of interesting that he did unite the 5 bands, because as we all might know, that's difficult.
Any more questions?
Sorry about that.
CEO?
And Mr. Attorney, one of the projects that we're working on over the next year in our economic development department is signage around the community that has the Indigenous languages and stories.
Mhm.
So perhaps we'll loop you in once we start working with some elders around that stuff.
Yeah, that'd be
So that you
great.
can get some more of the language stuff.
Mhm.
So I will get our economic development officer on your,
On my case.
yeah.
Fort Smith, by the way, I did my research, has 5 languages on their stop sign.
Well, Four.
And no Ukrainian.
Only, no, yeah, only four. French, English, Chip and Cree. Yeah, on all our stop signs.
Chippewan.
Yeah, Chippewan and Cree, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Charney. Appreciate, oh, hold it, Mr. Green, sorry, I don't see you flashing there. There we go.
No, thank you. So what I was hoping we get to out of this at some point is some kind of a support for his project, which sounds very positive right now. But in my world, that's time and equipment and money. And if we can get there at some point where you can make a commitment of, you know, with limits on it, that you'd like to see us lend a hand, whether it's some equipment time or purchasing some of the fidgets that go on the signs, the mounting posts and things like that. I need some kind of direction like that, so we have our limits set, if at all possible. So,
Yeah, I think probably what we should do is have a little meeting or two discussing what we could be looking for, where we can help and what's feasible for us to help. I think making a decision right now is a little premature, so.
no question.
Well,
Still-
that's excellent because in your procedures, you can't make a decision right now.
Yeah.
You have to wait till at least the next meeting
Yes.
before a resolution comes forward. But we do have a committee of the whole coming up in May. So if we haven't got anything by then, it might be a time we could put that for more fulsome discussion. If we haven't gotten anything before then.
Mr. Charney, and if the society could give us kind of a wish list of what
Right.
is really needed and what is, you're like, we need this, but we can live without this, we need that, we can live without, just so we have a bit of a formula
Yeah,
that
that's
we can
fair.
follow. So appreciate that. So
Oh, okay, very good.
anything else from anyone on this? Thank you, Mr. Charney. Appreciate it. I'll get you push that button on the way out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Except I never went to school here. Okay, moving on, 7.1, unfinished business. 7.1, annual property tax bylaw number 23692024. We have three recommendations. I will read. Recommendation that the city of Merritt 2024 annual property tax bylaw number 23692024 be read a first time. Councilor Petrosi, Councilor Etchart. Any questions on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation 2, that the city of Merritt 2024 annual property tax bylaw number 23692024 be read a second time. Councilor Etchart, Councilor Charney. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That the city of Merritt 2024 annual property taxes bylaw number 23692024 be read a third time. Councilor Petrosi, Councilor Egan. Any questions on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin, for your hard work. Thank you for everyone for all the work on the budget. Appreciate it. We all do, actually. 8.1, development variance permit, DVP 2024-003 at 1227 Midday Valley Road. The recommendation is that council grants development variance permit DVP 2022-003 to allow the use of a surety bond and performance bond as outlined in the April 12th, 2024 report of the planner as per section 498 of the Local Government Act. Councilor Egan, Councilor Petrosi, we've had a presenter. Any questions on this at all? I guess the only question I have is to Mr. Green. Mr. Green, are you comfortable with the situation moving the way it's moving?
Actually, I am. What we find is, you know, with our standards and a lot of the wording in our standards dating back to 1987, we've missed the opportunity in a lot of cases to bring things up into more commonplace things. I've worked with surety bonds quite a bit in my life in the contracting industry. The only thing to note by and large is if something goes bad regardless. The ability to draw funds is a little bit under a different scrutiny with a surety bond, because you're going to be demonstrating to the surety that there's been a breach rather than just going to a bank and saying, we're pulling the cash. If you're going to pull the cash on a line of credit anyways, you're going to have to defend it at some point anyways. So it's just a matter of what order you do things in. It's not, I know we've got it written down as less secure potentially, it's not as simple upfront. But once again, when things go bad regardless. One of the things I like about this method, like we've been dealing with in the contracting industry for years, it allows the cash flow to stay with the project, which is going to help the project succeed. where a lot of the projects I've seen have difficulty over the years are for lack of cash flow. And if we're providing securities in cash and trying to cash flow a project to build it, it puts that project under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I'm supportive of that. I think this is the way to move to get things done, so I'm supportive of it. Councillor Charney?
After reading it, I understand that the surety versus the line of credit is going to get a project going quicker and much easier than if they had to have a line of credit. You've sort of answered my question, Mr. Green, on what are the financial implications to the city. One thing I was looking at is on this letter dated January 30th, 2024. The 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph where it says, the developer would have to pay the actual cost of infrastructure and services. Does that mean the city has more of an obligation to build these infrastructures, or is it exactly the same? Like the water and sewer going to that development. Do we have any more responsibility with a surety bond?
No, this is really only a method of securing that the job is going to get finished, that they've started one way or the other. It's really a matter of if the project fails, we have to find a way to be able to finish it, put things back where they belong, or to finish the actual project. It's simply a different mechanism on how we get there. The surety company is going to want to try and finish it themselves, generally first, before the city takes anything on, right? Because they might be able to find more cost-effective ways to do it to save themselves money on their risk. The last thing we'd ever want to have to do is finish it ourselves, but I've been here before in other circumstances over the years, and that's not the best place to be. Like I said, when something's failing, it's failing and nobody wins. This is simply a way, in my mind, of being current with the way things are being done to help keep the cash in the project, help it be more successful.
Well, it would be nice to have that happen so that more developers can come in.
Councillor, let me push the button. My button. Councillor Olgan.
No, next. No, I am also in favor. I did a little bit of digging to, and I now understand that performance bonds are becoming more common, and I feel like we will be seeing those in the future. So I'm just wondering if there is a need to adapt our policies to deal with these performance bonds in the future.
So we are addressing all of the development services bylaws and procedures as a holistic package this year, given that we have to do the zoning and the OCP, and we recognize that there are some updating for, like, for instance, the building bylaws from 1987. We're just coming to the end of drafting that new bylaw. So the manager of planning and development is going to be working with his team to start fleshing out all of our policy review and bylaw review and processes to make it easier for developers and and single resident builders, right? Like construction. So you will see those coming over in the next 6 months to a year.
Councillor Egan. Oh, hold on, I think, no, sorry, Councillor Etcher, sorry.
I'm definitely in support of the surety bond and performance bond because we have actually had to use this before in the city when we had the UV treatment plant. And it definitely left us not having to fund the $780,000 project that didn't get completed due to a problem. And it's used by many different contractors. And I know even there's electrical bonds. Lots of contractors use this right now anyway in their industries. We just don't know about it. Well, I do, but anyway, it's very common.
Councillor Egan.
Thank you. And I was happy to see that you included the examples for like the one from Surrey that uses the surety bond. And then the comparison, which was Kelowna, which they don't. They have the certified letter of credit, which I thought.
Kelowna does.
They do now? Okay. Okay. Well, anyways, yeah, it is more and more prevalent these days, so I would certainly go along with that as well.
Thank you. So funny story. I got a call from a gentleman who was asking about this. And we were talking about it and he said something about the surety bond. He had a bit of an accent. I thought he was talking about Shirley Bond. And I was like, why is the shadow minister involved in a development? And he said, not Shirley Bond, Shirley Bond. And I was like, oh, he's Shirley Bond. Okay, good. So anyway, I just want to pass along one thing before we vote on this too. I got a message today from a very hard-nosed developer that said, had a meeting with your development services. What a great team. Don't ever allow the city to ever lose this group. They're worth their weight in gold compared to what we were hearing about 6 months ago. I'm very proud to pass that on. So Pranesh and Rick, thank you very much for all the hard work you do. And that one just about blew me over because that person has never said a nice thing to me since I sat in this chair. So I was really stunned. So we do have a motion on the floor. Going to call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
You sure you don't want Pranesh to talk? He had a half-hour presentation for you on this.
If Pranesh, I know how much Pranesh likes speaking openly in public, but
thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I can provide like a brief summary.
Okay, sure, please.
When this variance was advertised, not advertised, but then when there was a mail out, went by on surrounding property owners, we received 3 inquiries. So 3 residents came to the planning and development office and I myself explained the variance and what is it about. So they were curious about what is the variance is about. So it's not gonna directly impact their property. So I myself explained them what is the variance is all about. And then we also received one phone call about a resident from residents. So I also gave, I called back when I left a detailed voicemail that this is all, what is the variance is all about. And it's not gonna directly impact the property owner. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
thank you. And I guess when I see you here in a suit, which you often don't show up, you have to say something. So my apologies that I didn't ask you. So thank you. Okay, moving on. I'll get you to push that button. Thank you. Moving on. 8.2 MFA financing public works cross connection van. Recommendation that council authorize up to 74,000 to be borrowed under section 175 of the community charter from the municipal finance authority for the purchase of the cross connection van. And recommendation that the loan be repaid within 5 years with no right of renewal. Councillor Petrosi, Councillor Egan, questions on this? This is from the budget. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.3. 2024 TNRD fire agreement. Recommendation that the council direct staff to enter into the 2024 fire protection agreement with the Thompson-Nicola Regional District substantially in the form attached to this report. Councillor Egan nodding her head. Councillor Ogan. Yeah, somebody moves. It's like an auction here. Chief, anything you want to add to this? Anything? Oh, okay. Any CO?
I think what I would say is that we're getting closer to an appropriate rate of return on this, cost recovery on this. You'll see that over the next several years, it's going to continue to go up. So that again, we are not covering a burden that is not ours to cover, as what we've been doing in previously.
And this went through TNRD without a hitch, so. I was at TNRD. I do believe it has, yes. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but there was a bunch of stuff that went through and nobody said a word. So. Okay, it could be. Maybe it was just a primer. Councillor Charney.
Okay, but before I get going, on page 92, it says Greg Lowe's, corporate officer.
Their corporate officer, yeah. That's Thompson-Nicola Regional
Thank
District.
you. You got it. Question. So I wanted to ask the chief if he's comfortable with the scope of coverage and what happens. Is there any implication if you're out, in TNRD land and then we have a call in the town? So what are the implications of the extended coverage to Merritt residents?
Your worship, to Councillor Charney. So that language is included within the agreement. You'll see that we have the right to return all our apparatus without any what would be the word? Penalty. Yeah. So that is my sole decision or whoever's acting on my behalf. If we have simultaneous events, we can withdraw our equipment from the regional district to satisfy our own underwriters and insurers. The other end of that, you'll see in Schedule A, we've limited the scope of our service to strictly being fire suppression, whereas before it was a fire services agreement, which encompassed all the other type of jobs that or core services that we offer citizens of Merritt. We're only offering a fire suppression service out in the regional district and to an exterior level, which means that we're only obligated to action a fire from the exterior of a building or an object. We don't have to go into an IDLH or immediately hazardous to life and health type of atmosphere if it's not safe to do so.
And a second question, for example, 2024, you'll bring in $2,705, it's $275,808. Where will that money go? Where will it be funneled to? I guess that's CO's.
So this is directly to, actually, probably the CFO. I believe this goes directly to fire, offset the cost of fire services. Yeah, so it doesn't go to the general coffers, it goes right directly to chief service.
Perfect. Can I get you to say that into your mic, CFO, please?
Sorry, Your Worship, it goes to protective services revenues.
Thank you.
Under the chief.
Councilor Egan?
Yes.
Oop, you were there. No, I'm not.
Yeah, I
sure.
just also wanted to know if we're making this agreement with the TNRD and is it the Lower Nicollet Indian Band as well?
We're currently negotiating with the Lower Nicollet Indian Band for a 5-year agreement.
Okay, and then we would have use of their equipment?
We wouldn't have the use of their equipment. We already, separate from a fire protection agreement, we have a mutual aid agreement with Lower Nicollet Fire Department, which is totally separate, which means that if we do require assistance, we can call on them and their resources, and it's reciprocal.
Okay, but I thought they didn't have anybody.
They have a
Personnel,
fire department and
personnel.
they have equipment, and we utilize them to the level that we're able.
Okay, but I again, I thought they didn't have any personnel.
I can't speak to their staffing levels.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Pitcher.
I'm happy to see this agreement, but I do have a question though, because one question that comes up all the time is the rating that they get in Lower Nicollet for FUS because of the hydrant maintenance. So with this agreement, that will just be the fire service, and is it still going to be the waterworks looking after this? Because I can tell you the FUS rating is a problem in Lower Nicollet, and it affects a lot of people that live in Lower Nicollet. They just don't know it yet. But they will.
You're correct with the fire underwriters ratings out there with respect to their water system. That has nothing to do with the service that we provide, nor does it involve the regional district. It's not their water system, it's a private water system.
Yeah.
So as far as insurance grading goes, as you know, they get recognition for our service.
Yeah.
But in many areas, they might not get recognition for the water service.
For the hydrants, yeah.
Yeah. So-
Yeah, because it's.
And that can adversely affect insurance premiums.
Huge. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. That'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.4 Council Policy Review Committee recommendation from April 18th, 2024. Recommendation that council adopt the Recreation Advisory Committee terms of reference. Councillor Etchart, Councillor Olgan. Any questions on this one? Want to say thank you to the committee for working that through. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Notices of motion. Reports?
Yeah.
Well-
Yeah, I'm getting there. Is that?
What's that? Oh, notice of motion?
Go through.
Notice of motion.
I would like to make a motion that one day a month, we open up the pool for free, no charges to the public at all. I suggested from 1 to 6 and I met a little bit of pushback, so I would ask maybe from 1 to 5. That the pool be open to the public free. I think we, in this day and age when everything costs so much money and people are, having a hard time getting through day-to-day living. I think it would be nice if we as a community gave back to our citizens. So I'd like to make a motion that one day a month we open up the pool free of charge. I understand it's not a big financial implication to the city, but maybe Mr. Nakamimi can. No,
So
Merritt's pool.
Merritt's residence.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we can, we can't control that one.
So if you could get that in writing to
I
CO,
will.
we will see that next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other notices of motion? Reports from council. Councilor Richard, push your button. There you go.
Okay, but you're pushed. The last 2 weeks has been pretty busy. I know that April 10th, there was the coffee with the cop. That was not as busy this week because it was an emergency that happened. So it was only our CPO officer that was there, and we had the health planning table on the 11th. Lots of good information there, lots of progress. I think one of the nurse practitioners is supposed to be starting by September, I believe. And a new doctor had arrived April 15th. Museum meeting. They're always trying to find new ideas and ways to engage with the community. Arts Council had a show on the 12th, and I think they had a great turnout for Ms. Suzuki's art show. ESS had a big meeting on the 16th. It was well attended. Jackie Teggart was here on the 18th of April with the health minister, and so we got a lot of good information from that. Seeing what is being worked on and areas that we need to work around. Policy review met also later that day on the 18th. We had a good discussion that way about ideas where Councillor Charney had her idea about the pool, which is a good idea. And also on the weekend of the 13th, we have the vendors weekend here in the Civic Center. So that was quite a busy couple of weeks that we've had here. So, yeah.
Thank you. Let's see who the next winner is here. Councillor Charney.
April 11th, I went to the local health planning table with a couple other councillors.
Oh, was it actually on?
Yes.
How come you told me it wasn't happening?
Yeah, I have to apologize. I did tell the mayor the meeting was canceled because well, I don't understand these things when they come in all the time.
I'm marking that in the book, by the way.
Anyway, I did go, even though I told two councillors it was canceled. Sorry. Anyway, let's get back to the information here.
Thank you.
So a new doctor did start April 15th. He started with 800 patients and has the possibility of going up to 1,000 patients. September, December, we'll see 2 more doctors, and these are all at Dr. Ross's clinic, which I do not know the name of. I'm sorry.
I think it's Nicola Valley Health. Merritt Health Association. Yeah, it's
Anyway,
simple.
we'll have to find that out.
It's on the door.
And now if a patient goes to the ER and does not have a health card, a photo ID is now acceptable, which before it wasn't. 29% of the ER visits were patients that did not have a doctor. And there has been an uptick in mental health and addictions in the local area. April 15th, I went to the Community Economic Development meeting. That was a first for me. Well, I guess they've only had 2 meetings, but a first for me. Talked about a community calendar, and TNV said they will be having one, which will be nice. Friday market will be the first Friday of each month, May to September in Spirit Square. Farmers Market, May 11th to Thanksgiving, 55 to 60 members in the Farmers Market. April 17th, I attended the nurses rally with the mayor. I personally didn't think it was well attended, but we were out there. April 18th, met with Shirley Bond and Jackie Taggart, and there were discussions around hospice, primary care, addictions, and what they would do under the United Party. That day, I also had a policy review meeting. That went well. April 20th, I voted. And again, congratulations to our new counselor, Yvette Baxter, and congratulations to CO Brick and her team. Did an excellent job. I dropped the A at the end. She did an excellent job. I was very impressed with how seamless everything went, professional, and it was very nice to go. And we voted. perfect. And that night, I also went to a seniors dinner. I didn't have to cook, and I think that was well attended. That was their postponed Easter dinner, and we had it then. And that's all I've done.
So before you shut your mic off, can you update us on your ESS involvement the other night? So we do appreciate it, but if you could just give us the skinny on that, I appreciate it.
Right, there was a call at 12:05, structure fire, 2 units involved, and then it ended up there's a 3rd unit. But 2 families were involved. One family had a mother and a son, and they were placed at Florentine. And the other was mother and father and 2 children, and they were placed at Best Western. And you have to find some humor in it. And it was just fantastic to see the difference between the little boy and the little girl. The little girl was really upset. She was crying, and there's the boy. Isn't this great? The fire trucks were there and the lights were going and the water was going all over. And I'm going, whoa, difference between the genders, right? But yeah, they were all settled, and that's for the 72 hours. And it was really nice to see Canate stepped up and was helping both the families. So they were getting a lot of support. So that was nice to see.
Thank you. Thank you for your ESS involvement. And just let the community know that we have a very well-trained ESS team that meets once a month and very well put together. I want to thank the fire chief. I believe 10 members were on site. No one was injured. Fire was, I went and had a look at it, and to me, it's pretty serious, but looked like it could have been a whole lot more serious had it gotten off to the other buildings. So, because it's quite a tight area. So went down and saw the gentleman who worked on the fire and thanked them very much for their help. And so thank you very much for the excellent training to get that fire under control as quickly as possible. I'll just jump in since I'm yapping away here. So I did everything else today. I went to Thompson Rivers University where they had the chancellor induction, and it's Dee Dee DeRose who has been sworn in as the new chancellor. And it was quite interesting in her acceptance speech. She said, "I have no idea what I'm doing here or what a chancellor does," but she's willing to learn. And she is one of the very first First Nations principals that was up in Williams Lake and has been pushing for First Nations and non-First Nations education working together. And she's quite well known in the education world. And I think she'll do very well for TRU as she moves along. So it was really neat to see the invocation ceremony. One thing I did not realize that anybody that graduates from a university cannot graduate without the signature of a chancellor. Has to be on every graduation certificate or else it's not valid. So big job for her, big job. I went to TNRD on the 18th and 19th. Went to Dana's centennial wrap-up dinner. Councillor Egan, very generous. Everything was covered, and it was a really good time. The last gathering of the BCHL, and Paul's upset, but it was really well attended, and it was. It goes to show how Councillor Egan has enjoyed the team, and you know, and all the volunteers. I think everybody felt amazing, and looking forward to the new year. I'm very positive about the new year. I think it's going to be great. But that's about it for me. Councillor Egan.
Thank you. Well, I did go to the Centennial's final game. It was pretty exciting, even though we lost, but then it was like, okay, well, let's get this dinner going. So I did attend that on behalf of council, even though we sponsored it. I went to the Community Economic Development Roundtable on April the 15th. Was that the 15th? Yeah. Yeah. And then the Business After Business for the Chamber was on the 16th. It wasn't as well attended as I would have liked, or I'm sure that the chamber would have liked. But the chamber members that were there spoke very highly of all the things that they're doing in the community. And I think local businesses should really start stepping up and finding out what's going on with business in Merritt. I went to the roundtable for healthcare in BC with Shirley Bond and Jackie Teegert on the 18th, where they discussed not just local healthcare, but the general healthcare situation in British Columbia. Also that day I was in the policy review committee, and that was for council. And then at 5 o'clock I went to the Chamber of Commerce meeting. So it was a day back to back meetings. So I gave my work that day for sure. Then I went to the by-election and I voted as well and encouraged everybody that I saw to get out and vote. I thought too it was very professionally well set out. So thank you very much. That's it for me.
Councilor Petrosi.
I voted also and just want to congratulate Yvette again. So congratulations. Looking forward to working with you. I was working nonstop at my other jobs the last 2 weeks. I didn't attend too much, but I worked too much. But next week, I just wanted to remind everybody, May 1st at the Civic Center, there's an open house. So hopefully we get some really good attendance. We're going to be away at Silga next week in Kamloops, but I'll be coming back for the open house that night. So, and I think Councillor Charney is going to jump in with me to come back for that. So really important to attend that. And I can't believe I missed Dana's free dinner.
Probably saved her $1 or $2.
Anyway, I was working that night. Anyway, thank you.
Just a couple of other things. If any of the councillors are not busy tomorrow morning, I am meeting over at Nicola Meadows with my annual monthly meeting with the seniors. If anybody has anything to do at 10 o'clock, it's quite enjoyable. Councillor Ogan.
I just have a question because I also attended the Merritt Health Planning Table and there was a request. Have we issued a letter of support for that organization? For the Merritt Health Planning Table. So I believe Councilor HR sent an email. I just want to follow up on that.
No, you know what? I think I saw that email. I think it came in the middle of the night perhaps, or on the weekend.
You sent it during the meeting.
Did you? Okay, I'll have to go back. Sorry. I remember seeing it and then, yes, I'll go back. Thank you. Thanks.
Councillor Charney, you're back. So kind of interesting. I just got a bit of an email from someone in Victoria. Shirley Bond managed to stand up and do her estimates today. Estimates is where they're able to talk about things that we were talking about. And Minister Dix got upset and said he's tired of me and he's refusing our payout. So the only problem is I'm not asking Minister Dix. He doesn't have the power to reimburse us anything. It's going to the Premier. I know, but it's still, he doesn't have the authority and it's too bad he's tired of me and we'll continue on doing what we're doing. So, yep. So it's fine. You can be tired of me. I'm tired of other things too. So anyways, we'll continue to work on that. Anyone else? Information items. Just to let you know, on 11.1, I am contacting Carrie Doon about this and we'll continue to work on that. So we're doing that. Anything else that anyone wants to see there? I'm really nice to see finally a thank you from someone that got some money from us. That was really nice. So I appreciate that. I'm glad when that comes across and we can help somebody and they appreciate it. Any questions on the information items? CEO report? You're up.
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead, please.
Yeah, through Minister of Housing, I'm still wondering if we as a council are going to ask for an extension on this June 30th.
Oh.
Rewriting the bylaws and the community plan and all the rest of it.
So the first draft, the first requirement for the bylaw, they're gonna bring to you at a committee of the whole in May 21st. So our planning and development department has been able to take basically a lot of it's cut and paste from their standards into our bylaw. So that's the easy one. It's gonna be that we have to redo it again before the end of 2025. But through this process, we're also identifying things that we do know we want to address in our next revisions. So we don't at this point need an extension.
Yeah, if
We're good.
we decided that if we could get this done this way, there wouldn't be, but if we ran into problems, we would ask for an extension. But the minister's made it very clear that most likely all extensions will be denied. So.
But I don't want to see them.
Yeah, so you probably won't be, yeah, it's a precedent setter, right? So. Yep. Yes, we are. Councilor Egan?
No.
Nope. Okay. CEO report?
ordinance, have, reports as well as fire, any questions? The other, and also the other.
So if there's no questions from that. But there are a couple of things that we wanted to bring forward as interesting information items. And one of them is getting a little bit of direction from council for how you'd like us to proceed. I had the bylaw officer create for me a list of various types of problematic properties. So as Councillor Etchart had asked for the information about how we would deal with fire damaged properties. We have 5 fire damaged properties, 6 now, if you count the one from the weekend. 17 properties that have been identified as unsightly. Some of them, I toured with them last week. Some of them are very, very unsightly. We've identified 2 abandoned properties, as well as 2 properties as identifying as dilapidated homes. So parts of the houses perhaps are coming off. So what we would like is for some direction from council about how you might want us to proceed with this. Recognizing that we may not be getting direct complaints from neighbors or other community members, but all of this impacts our appeal to new residents, new businesses coming into the community. So the bylaw officer informed me previously the direction's only been to identify or deal with properties that we're getting direct complaints on. But this is an opportunity for council to revisit that and provide direction on how you'd like us to proceed with some of these properties.
Councillor Richard?
I know the oldest house that I can think of on Priest, the fire damaged house, has been like that for over 5 years. And so the concern is that there's neighbors who come and say, how come this has been sitting like this for so long? And I'm just concerned that it will be an attractant to squatters and
some of them are
injury and it's, you know, people are paying whatever amount of tax and then they're saying, well, and why can't we do anything about it? And then rodents and all sorts of, you know, unwanted.
Would
things.
this be a good policy review situation, or would this be a cow meeting possibly where we could
I
discuss
mean, it could be a
this?
cow meeting if you'd like us to bring that back forward.
I think we should, because there's a lot of nuances, because I do believe zone 3 and 4 still have some restrictions on abandoned houses, I do believe. I
But
could be
these-
wrong, but I do believe that there's still some restrictions that allow people to do certain things at this point. Am I?
Oh, I think those were all lifted.
Are they all lifted? Well, see, I'm not sure if it was or wasn't,
Yeah,
because
and then many of these are, I mean,
These are fire burnt
Mhm.
houses.
not just the fire burnt ones, but I think the idea around the ones that have
there's been abandoned.
accumulation of garbage and such things.
And then there's
in their
on my
yard.
street, there's an abandoned house and has been for almost 2 years. So, okay, Councillor Charnock.
Yeah, I think a cow meeting is great. But I would also, I don't know if this is appropriate, to have the addresses ahead of time so we can go out and look, or if that's not appropriate, could we see pictures so we know what we're talking about? And I think maybe it's a priority level, you know, most important to the bottom. And I think this is a type of a situation where we don't have to go by complaint, we go by the good neighbor bylaw. And you know, I mean, I agree with you. We have to look at our community as a whole, and, you know, we can't have people coming in and say, oh my gosh, look at this place here, look at this place there. You know, we have to do some cleanup for it.
And if we're going to do that, which I mean, I have this, I didn't provide it to you today because this would need to be in camera. Because it's people's personal property. So we would definitely be able to do that. And the bylaw officer has photos for all of these things.
Well, I just wanted to add that, I mean, there has to be kind of some parameters. Some people have a fire where, you know, maybe they're not accessing insurance, but how long it's been. I mean, that one is extreme case where it's been 5 years. Some of these people maybe haven't gotten their DFA, or they're waiting on funding, or they're waiting for something from Red Cross. That there could be extenuating situations. So I'm not trying to lump these all together because not every situation's the same. And I'm not trying to pick on anybody from zone 3 or 4, not at all. So I just want to be clear.
I'm just letting you know that That's what I think the COM meetings where we can flesh these kind of things out rather than there's no way we're deciding on anything.
No.
So.
Just needed direction how you
No,
want to.
just
do it.
throws-
Good neighbor.
You said 17 nuisance
Yeah,
properties?
Yeah.
And those are by complaint?
no,
No,
these are
those
just
are
the
not.
ones that the bylaw team has identified
Oh,
and that have
okay,
been
okay.
long-term issues in the community.
Long-term.
Many of them have been sitting there for years,
Okay.
as they are, like with a buildup of debris in the yard.
So can you comment on the bylaw team? I'm not sure everybody is aware of the bylaw team.
We have a team of bylaw officers. We have 1.5, one and a short person. So we do have a second bylaw officer for the season. So they've been able to go out and do a lot of work on compiling this list and getting the data and stuff for this list. So
Can I ask about that? We have two bylaws. So do they work the same hours or are we split now?
right now they work the same hours because we're still training the second bylaw officer.
Okay, and then they'll be split?
The
And
idea is
what
that they will start to work sort of a crossover shift where they will work part of the day together and then have some time, one of them a little bit later into the evening.
What about weekends?
We can look at that.
So we still do have the bylaw where you cannot have a tent during the day at Naquala Park?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were,
They're there.
that's on their list for this week.
Well, if you notice how that works, it always goes up Friday night because they know there's no bylaw officer on the weekend. So. CO, done?
No, sorry. Yeah.
Any questions for the CO on the report or what was in? Okay,
The other one thing that's in your package is is a report on our water consumption, the whole city's water consumption. Comparing the first 4 months of 2023 and the first 4 months of 2024. Of course, we're not quite all the way through April. But the director and I have had some conversations about these patterns. Particularly the relatively high usage in January compared to other months. So we're not sure. We've had discussions about what would cause that. And the only thing that we were able to come up with that makes a modicum of sense is that as during the cold months, and we may see this similar kind of thing in December, that any cracks or breaks we have in the pipes, when the pipes are shrinking, they may be allowing a greater volume of water to escape. So that being said, this is one of those reasons why, and I know that people aren't comfortable with water meters in the community, but we don't know how much water is getting to our end users. So we could be losing liters and liters and hundreds of liters of water on a daily basis, but we don't know that because we don't know how much is getting to the end users. And so we have places where breaks are very obvious because of the type of soil, and some places where breaks aren't obvious because it's more gravelly, and so the water is just going, right? So it's not being held in that spot. So in those cases, we may never identify those breaks, but if we know that, the end users aren't getting as much water as we're making, then we can start looking at other ways, potentially metering sections of line to determine if we're losing water in specific areas. But until we know start to end delivery, we can't really do all the problem solving that we need to do.
Councilor Petrosi.
I just know some of these older homes that aren't insulated very well will let their taps drip so they don't freeze up. So we used to do that on our dairy farm, so we wouldn't freeze up. So you might have some of the older homes in town that are actually doing that. So, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I know
right?
that is
It
a
could
good,
be.
good,
It could
good
be. So
suggestion, but yeah, that is a
I
good
think it's
suggestion.
people filling up their pools.
In January, yeah.
Councilor Egan.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you could have a community test day. Everybody try their water, just to find out if they're missing something.
You're elected for that. It's all on you.
No. Bylaw officer. No, they could phone, you say it's between this hour and this hour, and then if somebody doesn't have their water, phone City Hall.
I don't know.
You're talking about some people aren't getting their water.
No, they're getting water. They're not getting the full volume. Like what's happening is the water's still going through the pipe, but we're losing water out of the pipe and some of it's still going through, right? So people are still getting the water, but we're losing it out of the pipe as well.
Okay, well, mine's been like that for two years already.
So, well, you could just answer your own question.
No, but I have complained about it. And it has to do with Boat Street. I'm darn sure of it.
Well, we'll get that fixed.
Yeah. Okay, but I'm still saying, if people aren't getting their full pressure, phone City Hall or email City Hall.
Well, also too, they should probably have a look at their pressure reducing valve in their house.
Exactly.
Because I had an issue with mine and I ended up having two pressure reducing valves.
On the city page where things that they could be looking to identify if they've got problems.
Yeah, and these are things we'll be discussing that will be available through the director's staff on Wednesday next week to discuss, because we're actually going to talk about the water meter project and water conservation subjects. So people have questions about water. This is a good time to come to the
So
open house.
just so we're aware,
That out there again.
I had a problem with my water pressure at one point in time. I contacted, this is long before Rick was here. I contacted the city. They came out with a gauge. They hooked me up. They turned it on. Realized that I had some flow problems, went downstairs and there was two pressure reducing valves right in a row. So one was set at like almost off and the other one was wide open. So they removed one and happy days. But that's how that happened. But yeah, I think I made a phone call and within half an hour I had a gentleman there with a valve and realized there was a problem. So I think if people are having flow problems that I don't want to say anything, but that's how we found my problem. So. Are you done now? Okay, thank you. 13, closed session. Recommendation that this meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages, and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public of the community charter. Councillor Etchart, Councillor Trozy, any questions? All those in favor, moving into closed? 5 minutes and we'll be back. Smoke them if you got them.
So can event stay?
No, she's not sworn in yet. No, she has to be sworn in.